Hi everyone. So today I'm gonna talk to you guys about what I've actually been experiencing since I was 15, and I just want to let you guys know more about this condition or this challenge or this disorder that people face. I actually do hear like voices. I think it's really weird for you to process it. Like what kind of voices? Well, let me start by telling you that when I was 15, I was basically really like a teenager person. I had like stress, I had like studies to, do, and I think a lot of people know how hard it was, difficult it was for me at that point of time. This year I'm 20, of course things change. I'm more into like adulthood now, but that point of time to just live my life as a student, it was really pressurizing. It was taking a toll on me. So it was one of the most biggest downfall, but it also made me feel like, I can manage along my way. So basically, hearing voices is just like, people can hear voices for different reasons. Like people can hear inside themselves. Like when people think of something, of course, there's always a voice in our head. Like when you read something or when you want to process something in your mind and you're like, oh, okay, this is what I'm thinking, and that's normal, it's perfectly normal. But for hearing voices like outside or inside yourself, that I've experienced both. Like I experienced their voices from outside, like a radio, but of course the radio is not on, and there are people who really want to think well of themselves in this process, but it actually gets really demeaning, and that people who hear voices which are demeaning, which is probably inside or outside of their, like outside in like the radio or not, but actually the radio is not on. It's like you hear someone like walking past, or like, you know, like right beside you, you're saying things about yourself that's really demeaning. Some people actually are on the contrary and said that okay, people have heard that their voices are actually encouraging and positive, which I really want to have. Actually, to be honest and be very frank, I actually have negative voices, and it's really demeaning, and these voices can come from like anywhere around me. I never have it really inside. I would hear it like outside, which is for first hand people who have heard this, it can be really, really stressful, really traumatizing because of the context and the nature of your voices. It would be really, really alarming, and you'd be like, is there something that's going on within me, and how can I help it, because I really want it to stop. Which links me back to my first time when I was age 15. I really have this really huge breakdown. I told myself, why do I hear voices? It was really bad when I was 15 because I was actually just a normal girl. I don't know how it got led to full blown like hearing voices that I had to be put on medication. But I actually thought that because maybe I was stressed and depressed, and maybe I thought that, like because of I didn't really get along with some classmates, but it's not because it was personal between both of us. It was just that people were just a bit insensitive to me, but we never really did fight. So I didn't have a concrete basis why they were always teasing or like bullying me. But I think that was just long ago. I'm probably sure they have already grown out of it and just to stop, because we were just kids back then. I never messed with them. So basically, we were being insensitive, but I didn't really care about that. I just thought that it was something really awful for me, and I eventually went to seek help for it because I was always on the breakdown. I always have this really really traumatizing voices that will come to me if I want to listen to music. I don't know how I managed to listen to music, and if I'm listening to a song, if I'm listening to an album, the singer would always sing, the song, the lyrics, but it always came off as, to me when I'm hearing it, it's different. It's more like telling me that I'm worthless, I'm like, really, I'm not good enough and should just kill myself. It got really, really bad. I can never describe how it really means to me, but I felt really sad and afraid. I went to my mom, I was crying. I just wanted to listen to music, but I could not. It was that bad. I don't know how to explain it. It's one person thing. Not everybody can understand, everybody can experience it, but it was really horrifying for me. Went to my mom, then I went to see a psychologist and a psychiatrist, and I was put on antipsychotics. And that was the first medication that I was on, and I had it since years, and I stopped it when I was last year around that. What I can say is that it was really terrifying for me the first time, and for me, I just think that it was really a challenge. It was really something that was a whole awful journey, but it also meant to me that I could discover myself and how do I challenge the voices. Like, I feel like, with depression, which also I was diagnosed with depression, clinical depression, I also thought that maybe because I hear the voices, I was actually depressed. But actually, if I keep growing as years go by, as the stress goes by, and that like after school or after graduating, and that was actually lessened because at that point of time the pressure was so high. I took a lot of subjects that I really thought that everything I could not do well. It wasn't just one whole content subject, like for example, if you go to polytechnic or like uni, you just focus on one subject but more in depth. But it's just like different things have changed now. Things change all the time. So if I graduated and then I start to become a bit more grateful and content, maybe if I get sad, at least I want to be grateful. I didn't really thought that it was really severe depression, but I always managed to look at myself and tell myself that it's gonna be okay, I'll try my best and everything. So I really wanted to make sure that I don't break down, I don't lose myself, because there was a lot of times where I would question, like in my head, in my mirror, just because of the voices I hear, that I'm not worthy as a person, because I feel really embarrassed, humiliated by what they say about me. They're very degrading. And also in real life, not everybody can be kind to me all the time, which I always entirely rely on myself. And even if things change, people are a bit off to me, I don't really have to take it like personally. I always rely on myself, saying that I'm doing this because I'm doing it for me and not for someone else, and not based on someone who gives me this look or that feel or that word that they impose on me, because I really didn't really want to take it personally. And I know that some people can be really mean and insensitive, especially in working world. But yeah, so basically I was really on my way to recovering, but here's the catch, is that hearing voices is something that people might deem to be incurable, especially those who have been diagnosed with schizophrenia or a disorder somewhere along the line to hear voices. But I would want to always question why, because like people who are diagnosed with schizophrenia, it's because of their hearing of voices that really affects their functioning, and also that they have hallucinations and they have this really bizarre thinking, like a delusion, and it was all categorized into one. Which I was joining a group like like schizophrenia or like anything else, because it's the most common thing to hear voices. I honestly am a bit perplexed, because people who have schizophrenia, even on medication or not, I feel like they could still talk coherently, because in a group I could actually really add people who seem to talk well. I'm not sure if they're on or off, but people have that perception, because I have the perception that, oh, they probably couldn't function well, they can't type or speak well, but I think they're managing it or on medication, which I'm really glad, because I really hate it when someone is totally feeling like they're gonna lose themselves, because I really want to help them. I would really want to help if I really can, because I really hate seeing people in pain. But yeah, so I don't understand that, and I will never quite understand how it was all merged into one disorder or different disorders somewhere along, hearing voices and like hallucinations, everything. And then we got to be put on antipsychotics, which was the medicine I was talking about was antipsychotics, and it was really, really bad for me because I feel like, you know, just to be put on that and have to have weight gain, like I really look different now and then. I actually was kind of embarrassed to look back at my past pictures because I was basically really near obese, but like my cheek was always flushing and like blowing up like a Mrs. Puff from like SpongeBob SquarePants. But I would seriously look at it like, oh no, like it was really hard for me to just hear voices, to sometimes feel depressed, and then the depression turns to like real voices that, you know, that are probably from someone that hurt me, someone who degrades me. Of course, there are people in my life who are like that, so that's why I'm really careful about which people I let inside my life. But as I went to make a video before about toxic people, toxic relationships, toxic friendships, somewhere along that line, we don't have to always keep it in our heart, you know, because every day if I keep living in these voices that I could not comprehend, I understand it is not really real because I can't see it. Even if I see it's an auditory hallucinations, I would love to always protect myself. If I'm being put in a really dangerous situation or dangerous situation where I'm with a lot of toxic people, I'll definitely get out. No matter what people say, no matter how people judge me, if something is not good for me, I just get out, because there was never a benefit for me being with that person or being friends with that person. Yeah, so I do not like to bully people, and I'm different from my voices, which I'm glad I understand that I don't bully people. So that's the most important part. But I never really get why things are the way they are sometimes. But people are people, and I understand that. It's just that we should never be more than just a disorder. We are just human, and humans deserve to be respected and loved all the time. And no one should be treated as a, you know, criminal, someone indifferent, because I always accept people for who they are, and not everyone has the same heart as me, but I really do accept people for who they are, and I wish that people could be more sensitive towards people's feelings and actions. I might not really care, but I also care at the same time. I have a balance of that, but I would not like it when someone does all these things to another person. But I'm not really done explaining. So there's another one that is similar to schizophrenia, which is delusional disorder, which unfortunately, I think my doctor actually diagnosed me as this, and I have seriously embarrassing because I'm not really delusional. I had bizarre thinking as something that I could not comprehend at the time, but it was more linked to hearing voices. So it was not that I was seeing things and like believing that I'm really seeing things, or believing that, you know, it's actually quite a silly disorder if I were to say, because if you were read up on it, you would be like, what was I thinking? But it was more to hearing voices. So basically, like I said, when I hear voices, anybody can auditory hallucinate, which is like hearing the voice, and the voice is a coming sounds or coming from like someone, you know. You would probably hear that person in the context and nature of the voice. You'd hear like, if it's really scary, like, you know, you're worthless or go kill yourself, that person's face would just distort into something that's really monstrous and not something like the person. So basically, that's something that is really very scary. And sometimes I would also feel a bit paranoid. So delusional or paranoid disorder is pretty much the same in this context, and sometimes I would feel like I have to be wary about things around me, but I realize that I have it under control. If I were to always compare myself to, you know, to being on medication or not, it was traumatizing enough for me to be on the medication, and I really would not want to be on it, because I gained weight and I went to A&E, and I wanting to faint at that point of time. I had it for days. I went to A&E and I couldn't stand. They put me in a wheelchair, and then they said that, you have to be put on the previous medication. I felt like a guinea pig because not every medication can suit me, and I literally was really sad. I could not really stand up, so I went to the old medication. It was the same. The fact that if I were to say the effect of being on medication and not, is that I would want to say that being on medication just relieves your anxiety, but it doesn't make the voices go away. So that's the most traumatizing part for me, because I almost risked my life for that. And to be honest, now that not on medication, sometimes I do hear voices, maybe because of stress or like trauma from people or anything. The fact that I'm out of it, away from the person, I get frustrated because I would hear the voice, but it's not really real, so I would not really care about it. But it still gets to me every time. It's very degrading, and nowadays, I just want to tell myself that I want to be really strong, because the antipsychotics only relieve the stress, the anxiety of hearing voices all the time, or at periodic periods, or just at periods that would last really long, or a few minutes. I just don't understand. Still a bit perplexed why I can't really recover fully, but honestly, this is something that is not really curable. For example, for me, I always want to always keep challenging the thoughts, but as I learn, it really is really hard for me. I actually really struggle with it. Sometimes I would really want them to just keep quiet, because the context of the voices are so unlike me. They would be so mean to me that I'll be on the floor crying, and people or the voice would keep laughing at me, and like say like you deserve it. When I did something wrong, you deserve it. And of course not in my tone like this, but it's really like a really angry tone that out of my heart I feel affected even though it's not real. And then when I want to wake up, sometimes I would have someone say that, of course I had a bad experience with this person. They say, you eat like a pig, you're worthless, go and die. And even sometimes if you look in the mirror, of course, I would feel like, I'd be a different person, and then be like telling myself that, you're better off just, dead, or, oh, you look at the girl, she's more prettier than you. And even though you're myself, that I understand that I will never compare myself to anyone, but because of certain things, even the mirror can be a frenemy to me, which I never fear myself. Look at myself in the mirror and be like, okay, so I want this to go away, maybe it'll go away in seconds, maybe in minutes, but I never stare at myself in minutes in the mirror because I feel really scared of myself. And and I don't like looking in mirrors for a long time actually. So basically, it's something that is so unlike me, and I would never want to just tell myself to heal myself. It's very inhuman, and I get really frustrated. And now that I know better, since I have it since years, I want to understand myself, but I get frustrated. Maybe that's the way that I was having sadness or depression, and it's something that would always trigger me to maybe cry or be frustrated. But I think there are certain ways to manage it, and yeah, so that's my experience with voice hearing. I definitely think it's scary, and I want to thank my mom for this, because that time, the first time I had this really huge breakdown about this when I was 15, I really wanted to. I told my mom that I don't really want to live anymore. I never really want to be vulnerable in my feelings, but that was how bad it was, because I just wanted to live normally, and I don't know how it got so bad. Now that last year I was actually I don't really have trauma. I never label myself as trauma. Of course I have a lot of traumatized experience, but I never let it affect me. But basically, because I was stressed and traumatized, this was all the triggers which made me have these voices again. But as long as I know that I'm not really in danger, or if it's someone that's toxic for me, I would definitely feel that's a bit of a relief. But and the voices I hear are not real, even though it seems like it's real. I was actually walking around, doing my stuff, go back after school, sometimes get paranoid that, you know, That's actually will sometimes actually feel like someone is really punching me. I would really feel it, or slapping me or kicking me, and I'd never understand that. Even if I was put on antipsychotics, I think I'll just relieve. I don't know. I was never thinking about someone who was going to kick me, or because of the voices, it makes me feel maybe a bit unsafe. But I was never really scared of that. Maybe that's a auditory hallucination that I was having. I'm being really paranoid. Sometimes I would hear the voices, I look behind, and that I would hallucinate. But yeah, so if anybody would want to ask me to go back to the medication, I'll have my reasons. I know people have reasons why they are on medication or not, but for me, I've already explained that it was really life threatening for me. I didn't want to live in a state where I was really unhealthy, and I want to manage it. And if I really would, I would go to seek help again. But now I'm not on it, and I wouldn't be afraid to seek help again. But I want to manage myself, even though how painful it is. I know I have my bad at the end of the day, and it's more like challenging myself that it's just voices. They can't really have any power over me, which I want to face it every day. My also opinion on this, or being on medication or any kind of antipsychotics, is that I really want to make people know that they are more stronger than just voices, or they are much more stronger than their illness. Unless it's really like you really need to be on the medication, then you should be. But I would want to tell myself I want to go natural way, because it's not really healthy. And for me, and even if as a woman, if I get pregnant, it will be more hard for me to conceive it. I look at things really differently, but it's up to you and your doctor to discuss. But for me, I really think that that was one way to, you know, look at how I see life is different. If you ever hear voices before but not demeaning, I think it's normal. Like this one, you are actually fine, because research estimates that around 10% of people have had an experience of hearing voices at some point in their lives. Talked with someone, with my friend, she said she had here, and it's more to positive, which is fine. And if it really functions well with it, if you really function well with it, then you shouldn't be a problem. Because yeah, the only problem is that when it affects your life and your functioning. The voices you hear may be neutral or positive. It might be a familiar voice or an ephemeral voice, and it's just something that needs to be cautious about. If it's positive, then it's fine. Like I said before, please be aware that it's normal, and only when you can't like go to work, get up, or like do school studies, it's really very hard. And yeah, so I'm probably one of those who have distress from hearing voices, but I can just do fine without professional help. But of course, if I really need to seek help, I'm not afraid. But people manage with it in a way. So it's matter of a choice and how you manage it. But if I really just say to you my experience with it, yes, it can get really scary. It can get really, really intense. That yeah, it can make myself have like a really mental breakdown. But yeah, so on the other hand, people can hear voices, but it's positive. There was one thing that I read from this, is that people who are on medication and those who are not for hearing voices, people who are on medication, they have like more controlling and really intense voice, which is why I was like on medication and on the antipsychotics, I'm like realizing, why do I still hear voices and it will still be like that? But if I'm not on medication, they say that it might be more manageable, if that sense, which is really alarming for me, because I did not know. And based on that, psychiatrist really wants to just prescribe medication, but maybe a psychologist would love to help you to process your thoughts, which she always asks me to challenge the voices. But this can come like so many times, or maybe I would ignore it, or maybe I didn't need to reflect on it because it's not something that I would love to reflect on, and it's not really who I am. So that was really something that doesn't need to be cared about, but of course everybody gets tired. So if you really get tired, please rest and do not quit, and keep going in life, and do not always fear life, live life, and know that there's always help available. You can always rely on yourself and always be strong for yourself at the end of the day, because life is difficult but it's worth it. I hope that people can really take something out of this, and I really hope that people won't have to suffer from what I did and actually learn, if you are in my shoes. Or if not, then I hope that this was a lesson that's good for you and informative for you, because it's a really rare condition, it's really a rare disorder, but people have it, and I was one of them, and I'm still one of them. I'm still learning to manage it, and that's something that I would want to keep going in life, and it's just a matter of perception. Yeah. So take care, everybody, and I hope you stay safe.